Project Sapient is a podcast meant to engage our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement and military communities in conversations that we all know we need to have. All opinions you hear are our own, and they are protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. They are in no way reflect or are meant to reflect the opinion of any specific agency, officer, or service member. Some opinions may be controversial. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy. All right, everyone. Welcome to Project Sapient. We are back. Well, we're always back. During the summer, it's a little slower than than I usually push out content. Just nature of the job during the summer. It's very, very busy in the law enforcement world because, surprise, surprise, weather gets nicer, crime goes up. That's just the way it is. Especially in the New England sub-freezing temperatures, people tend to stay indoors and get a little bit, I'll say, I work in a city, so it's a little bit quieter, not too quiet, but enough to really do some other things. But I'm very excited about today's episode. I know you guys hear me say that every time, very excited because I do. I love these, especially this conversation that we're about to have. And this conversation we're about to have really ties into a lot of the stuff I do at training other first responders, civilians, especially with the stress physiology and the neuroscience behind it. And it's really starting to take hold in the law enforcement world, which is really where a lot of administrators and bosses are really starting to understand stress physiology in terms of the job and all the stress that goes on. And on top of that, wellness and nutrition plays a massive role that, I'm sure my two guests are going to talk all about it. And I want to introduce them right now. So let's get to it. So we have Chris Wagner and Dave Abarbanel. I think I mispronounced it, Dave. Sorry about that.
Oh man,
yeah,
it's close.
Yeah.
Abarbanel.
Okay, all right, we got it. So text to the listeners. So myself and Dave, we started talking on LinkedIn actually because he I think you noticed a couple of my posts, kind of really digging into the neuroscience behind stress response and kind of some of the training that I do on myself. And, I use myself as the guinea pig, some of the training I do on myself and also, out in the world that I try to push through writing for Havoc Journal and various other publications. So who we have here are actually, before we get into it, let's do introductions. And so Dave, if you want to kick it off, introduce yourself to the listeners.
For sure. Yeah. So thanks so much for having us here. So awesome to be on with you and chat with you. Just like you said, I met you men on LinkedIn, and I saw this incredible guy. I had no idea who you were at the time, but I was like, who is this dude? Army background, law enforcement, posting about nervous system training. And because very few people are talking about it, as you know. And so, yeah, man, glad I met you and happy to introduce myself and Chris to your audience. So yeah, Dave Abarbanel, born and raised in the US, got into sort of like performance stuff on the physical and mental side pretty early in life. I was always an athlete, but actually joined the Israeli military straight out of high school, served in the infantry there for a year and a half, was in a bunch of kinetic stuff, was also in the West Bank and doing a bunch of stuff there. And after that, decided 100%, I got out around 2007. At that time, the U.S. was still very much at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. I went to college at George Washington and saw a bunch of veterans coming back from that space and knew that, okay, I want to do something to support the U.S. during this time. Didn't know what it was. Studied Arabic, Persian like crazy while I was in school. Traveled all over the Middle East because I was like, this region's going to be important no matter what. Wound up joining the Green Berets right out of college. A bunch of Green Berets showed me what they were up to in Afghanistan, mostly, a little bit of Iraq. And I was like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could send 12 guys instead of 1,000? That was sort of one of the things that drew me to it. But yeah, I was very fortunate, tried out, became a Special Forces medical sergeant, a Green Beret, and did a couple deployments, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, and of course, Afghanistan. So did that. Phenomenal experience, got married in between, life changed a little bit. I started looking at some different things. Spent some time in the corporate world as a consultant for this company called McKinsey and Company. Required that I dress up in slacks and a collared shirt, which wasn't exactly my jam, but I learned a lot while I was there. And following that, I decided, okay, I'm sort of getting a little bit about what this private sector thing is about, but I really want to find something that I can do, that bring into the world that I can really be proud of. And so started exploring different paths in entrepreneurship, wound up going to, incredibly fortunate, got into business school at University of Pennsylvania's Wharton, went to business school there and, met a bunch of great people who were inspiring in different ways, started exploring different businesses in the wellness space. Also during that time is when I get into in post-military is when I get into that endurance training, marathon training. I saw two of my buddies run Ironman Lake Placid. And so I jumped on that train, ran an Ironman in 2023 and was exploring a couple different businesses until I met, Chris in 24 and we decided to go all in on what is now Sapient together. And I mean, I'll save that for a separate story, but that is incredible in and of itself. But yeah, that's a bit of my background, man. And so again, so grateful to be here with you and Chris today to talk about it.
Awesome. Chris, you take the floor, buddy. I know you said you're a man of few words, so by all means.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Midwest. Lansing, Kansas was actually right next to a military base, Fort Leavenworth. So Army College is there. Basically, my whole family was from there and never moved. I was the only one, I think, that's actually escaped from the Midwest. I was able to do that through baseball. So I earned a baseball scholarship, wound up at a branch of the University of Texas. So University of Texas Permian Basin. Played baseball down there. As an athlete, kind of fell into studying kines. I think that's just kind of what most athletes do when they have no idea what they want to do after school. Mm-hmm. Again, I was more focused on the baseball than the academics at that point, but studied kines, also minored in psychology. So I was always really interested kind of in that mind-body connection. And early on, I understood, how much influence the mind has over physical performance and health in general. So after graduating there, moved back to Kansas City for a short amount of time, started working with stroke, Alzheimer's, and dementia patients. So that was at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City. So at that point, it was an extremely progressive program. We were actually using lifestyle medicine to treat people with Alzheimer's and dementia. So that was kind of my first real life introduction to the power of lifestyle medicine. And what I really took away with that was the earlier we were able to intervene with these people, like early signs of mild cognitive impairment, we actually saw really, really great results. We're able to see some reversal in kind of that cognitive decline. So there we're using, some exercise, yoga, mindfulness, and nutrition. And there was also a cognitive-based computer program. But again, that combination of just changing lifestyle really was powerful. I after that bounced around a little bit. I actually became a fitness director on a cruise ship.
Oh, that's cool.
I basically just wanted to be able to explore. And I was out in Hawaii floating around for 10 months and then was able to take a couple months off and then went back. So I was able to explore, did some trips in 10 weeks in Europe and another 10 weeks in Southeast Asia. So again, a guy from the Midwest kind of opened up my eyes to the world a little bit. But once I wrapped up on the cruise ship, I ended up in Southern California and Los Angeles. And I started working with high performance athletes. So working with college professional level athletes, more on the sports performance side. So, really training in order to prevent injuries and then just maximize performance. Yeah. But even there, I saw a huge, a lot of these high performers really were different mentally. They took a different approach to their training. They were very cognizant of that connection still. While I was training, I saw a need for a particular fitness device. Where I was working out, again, was kind of an interesting facility in Los Angeles where we had kind of, housewives all the way to, NFL linebackers. And basically the gym was set up where we had a functional training zone, a track running right down the middle, and then cardio and weights. So inevitably we would have, some of these NFL guys running down with a sled or pushing a sled at very high speeds.
Yeah.
And then you would see a little kid or a housewife walk right across.
Oh, geez.
and almost a train wreck occurred. So
Oof.
I kind of, saw a need for a piece of training device. I invented, patented, and licensed out a piece of training equipment that allows people to do stationary sled exercises on a sled in a stationary location. And as I was wrapping that project up of licensing it out, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So that really kind of brought me back to that mind-body connection and really figuring out how can we use lifestyle and create interventions to start making a difference in cognitive and mental health. COVID happened right around that time. So my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was like, you're really interested in this. You're passionate about it. I think you need to pursue something in that space. And I was 100% on board. But again, at that point, I'm not an academic. I was like, going back to school it doesn't excite me. But being able to really study and take a deep dive in this made a lot of sense to me. So she kind of pushed me to apply to, I applied to one school, got into Columbia University, studied neuroscience. And while I was there, I really discovered nutritional psychiatry. So spent a lot of time studying that and then started formulating some different dietary interventions and products to be able to help with cognitive and mental health. And then eventually Dave and I crossed paths and teamed up to bring the world Sapient.
Oh, that's awesome. So Dave, when did you how did you guys cross paths?
Totally. So we actually, this is a funny story, man. Also, I love every time Chris tells his story, he starts off as if he's like this very low-key guy from the Midwest, and it just becomes clear, like around midway through his intro, that he's an absolute genius.
Yeah, well, the quiet professional idea,
Dude, totally. He embodies, he totally embodies it, but I love hearing Chris's story every time.
Yeah.
How we met, I was super fortunate. It was, around 2024, coming off another business venture that I realized sort of wasn't gonna make it big. Was still looking for the right move to make in wellness. Chris and I were actually both on YC co-founder match, and so this cool dude reaches out to me over YC co-founder match, asks me if I'm interested in doing the marketing and sales side for a product, which at the time was called Nourish. And Chris had like this incredible, something that struck me from the beginning with him was just like what a genuinely good person he was, from the first moment of the call, from the way he'd set up that company, the name was previously Nourish. He was so mission driven. And so like this is, I imagine you can appreciate it too, having been, in the military, out of the military, in law enforcement, like to meet these people who Chris does not have a military background nor law enforcement, but just to know so purely that like, oh man, this guy, he was, he mainly started this company to help people not suffer the way he and his family did. And that really stood out to me from the get-go. And he tells me about his mission, to support cognitive and mental health, sort of like left of symptoms coming into play. And we talked a little bit about that. And honestly, I thought, wow, this guy is, great guy, super talented. I'm not quite sure that the positioning of the company was something that I could really help with the whole ton. It was sort of more on the clinical side at that point. But Chris is like, hey, look, do me a favor, man. Just will you try this? Try the product that I created to get people start off on the right foot, to help them eat better and improve cognitive and mental health. And just let me know what you think of it. Really low key. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. No problem. Sounds good. And so Chris sends me this thing. I now have like a bag of powder sitting on my kitchen counter from some dude that I just met on the internet. And I was like, okay. I was like, phenomenal. I was like, am I really gonna eat this stuff? Because you look at, I look at Chris and I'm like, the odds of this guy being a serial killer are low, but not zero. Not zero. I was like, it could be. He's got that, like, he's got a kind face, he's like this really like quiet professional air about him. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think this guy really wants to hurt me.
Yeah.
So I take this stuff. I did wait till my wife got home. My wife was just traveling. I sort of waited a couple of days till she got home. I don't know if I've told you that, Chris, but I waited a couple of days. I didn't tell her that I was nervous about it, but I was just like, all right. So I take this stuff. And at that time, I was in the middle of like a super intense train up for a half Ironman. I decided late that I was going to do Ironman Santa Cruz and was like right in the middle of the training cycle, pushing super hard, was like exhausted from workouts, but loving it.
Yeah.
And so I've had a Whoop for like, I think 6 years at this point, since 2019.
Yeah.
A long time. And so I take this stuff that Chris gives me, wake up the next morning, and literally overnight, my HRV had popped 25%.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what in the world?
Yeah.
My resting heart rate was also down 8%. And I just laughed, man, because I was like, obviously this isn't, I was like, this can't be Chris's stuff.
Did you say, what is the sorcery? What is the sorcery?
Yeah. I was like, no way, man. I was just like, that's what a coincidence. This guy gets so lucky. I take his stuff. And, to my surprise, so I like go, because I've taken just a small tangent. Like I've taken AG1 and some of that stuff before. And like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't show up in my HRV and resting heart rate. That's for sure. I'll tell you that. And so, I'm sort of like still not a believer at this point, but I go the rest of the week. Day 2, the same thing happens. Day 3, the same thing happens. Day 4, same thing happens. Basically, I forget to take it on night 4. And so I wake up on night 5 and my HRV is back down and my resting heart rate's back up. And at that point, I was just like, what the hell? I was like, holy shit, I think this guy's really onto something. Mm-hmm. And so I think I started immediately like furiously texting Chris and being like, did you know this did this stuff? I'm sending him screenshots of my Whoop. I don't think he ever knew. I don't think he had a Whoop before. Like maybe you knew what it was, but I'm just like bombarding Chris with like, dude, this is amazing, incredible. And basically I sort of talked to him about it after he was like, wow, that's really amazing. He sort of mentioned that he hadn't been tracking it necessarily in athletes and hadn't been looking specifically at those metrics because he was more focused on the mental health side at first. Yeah. But was super interested in what we were seeing. And so ultimately we decided to, I sort of got back to him. I was like, look, man, actually I would be interested in doing this. I think there's a huge market for this with people who are under both physical and mental stress, like the athlete profile, the law enforcement profile, the military and special operations profile. And Chris, took a little bit of time to think about it, being like the thoughtful guy that he is, did some research on also like mental health aspects, mental health challenges in those communities. And after some research came back and he was like, yeah, let's rock and roll. So that was summer 24 or like fall 24. And we officially launched the company in January 25 is sort of when we started selling the first things.
Wow. I mean, so Chris, I want to circle back to you though, because something very interesting you brought up, which I've never heard of, nutritional psychiatry. I mean, what is that?
It's a new field. I think the seminal study was done, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so. So very in the realm of science, extremely new. And all it is literally using food or dietary interventions to treat mental health or cognitive health. So it's extremely simple, but very powerful. They're seeing data come out where it's as clinically efficacious as some antidepressants. So especially with people like treatment-resistant anxiety and depression, this is a new avenue, new treatment that's open now, and it's getting clinically validated.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the thing. So tell the listener. So Dave and Chris, they sent me a bottle of Sapient to try. And again, like I said, I love the name because you got Project Sapient and then you have Sapient. It's like marrying two human performance type, mentalities, together in one spot. So I remember I talked to you, Dave, the next day. I'm like, dude, I feel clearer. Like, my mind is clearer. That was the first thing I noticed. Like everything feels great. And that's the thing is that's what I noticed right away. And that's besides like you, Dave, I saw the same thing. My HRV went up, all these other things went up and it's just been, and I did the same thing as you. I actually didn't take it for a couple of days. I want to see again. I was like, what is this voodoo? Let me see what it is, and I did it, 2 days, didn't do anything. And sure enough, everything dropped again. And I think in the law enforcement world, the cognitive overload we are subject to every single day, especially working in a city. Like I work in a medium-sized city. You're talking, we average one 911 call every 2 minutes. Apparently, it's some sort of average, So we're
Wow.
constantly dealing with emergency after emergencies, and we're going. So cognitively, we are constantly being bombarded with information and with things and with stresses, and no matter what, And what I find is, most of the 911 calls that people call in are not actually like the legit emergencies that come up, but it's enough because they're calling 911, the dispatcher's sending you, so you're taking all that info where we'll have someone call in a bad car crash and multiple injuries. Like, we had actually just the other day, we had one. It was a car crash, and one of the people saying that an arm needs to be amputated of some. So I'm thinking like really serious crash. So obviously, like, my heart rate's up, everything's up. I'm on my way there. Now I'm the road sergeant, so I got to coordinate, whether I need to shut down traffic, I got to call in detectives, I need to seal, you know what I mean? So there's 100 million things I'm thinking on my way there. When I get there, it wasn't that at all. It was like a minor accident. So, but that goes back to the cognitive side of the job that not too many people, and unfortunately not too many leaders have been looking into, not too many, like mayors and stuff. They don't know what they don't know. Right. So they have no idea the cognitive stress that's put on us constantly on a daily basis. And that's besides the other units that I was a part of, whether, DEA, task force, SWAT, all those other things that I've done and that I still do to this day. What I found with Sapien, though, taking it, everything is clearer. It's tough to describe, right? And that's besides for me, it's besides the physical side. The physical side, I'm always an athlete, but what I was more interested in is that cognitive, whether in a fog or am I clear? And that's what I noticed right away is I was clearer. Like, it wasn't this mental fog that I had, especially after a very stressful day. Next day you go into work, and Chris, I'm sure and Dave, there's been so many studies done that shows after a critical event, the body and mind needs anywhere between 48 to 72 hours just to reset. But first responders, we don't have that. We have to, call after call. I'll never forget. I went to in a few days, I went to like this poor lady. She was 6 months pregnant. She had a miscarriage. So you see the baby on the floor, struggling to breathe. And then, right after that, I'm going to another crazy call. So you're talking like one thing after another where your mind doesn't have time for that reset. You're not given that opportunity in that time. So in the law enforcement world, something like Sapien really, to me, after, taking it now for, I don't know, about a couple months now, Dave, I think.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah. So for a couple months now, it's like, it really helps me reset much quicker, if that makes sense to you guys.
It's awesome. I mean, it makes total sense. Number one, man, it's just like, it's incredible to hear you talk about this. Like, definitely, we share that military background. And I do think, like, I have so much respect for law enforcement, because I actually think the thing that you're talking about, like, and the thing that obviously we tried to do with Sapien, help manage the nervous system, like the scope of things that you might see as a law enforcement officer are so broad and like literally so close to home, where it's like, that's a total, in my opinion, that's like a very challenging problem set. It's a broader scope problem set than like even the stuff we face in the military, which can be super stressful. But at least you sort of know like where the bounds are. And so I think to what you're talking about, like getting that clear mind, I mean, it's just like, yeah, man, I can only imagine how important that is when you're like going from a call where you're potentially, where you're potentially unholstering your weapon, and then the next call is like domestic disturbance, nothing required of that nature at all. Like, no use of force required. And you've got to be the calm presence all of a sudden.
So that's the thing. I think, Chris, you can probably talk on this one too, is just when you're constantly on that hypervigilant alert, right, and unable to regulate yourself, call after call after call, that's where you get the bad decisions, right? Because you're so taxed in terms of what you dealt with, and you go to the next call. And like you said, it could be not even, it's probably someone got their credit card stolen, like nothing major, right? You're just going there, but you are so amped up still. It almost sounds like you're yelling at the victim where you're not. You're just amped up. So Chris, I mean, let's talk like sympathetic, parasympathetic systems and how Sapien helps you to regulate those.
Yeah, and I think that's really what goes on in law enforcement, especially is you get all of these calls, your heart rate spiking, your sympathetic nervous system is always on.
Yeah.
And you use the word reset. And I think that's exactly what our product does. And it's kind of unintended consequences of what I developed. I was developing it for anxiety and depression primarily. And, Dave was a high performance athlete and under a lot of stress. And a lot of people that we've tested with now, again, have the same profile, either high amounts of physical or mental stress. And getting the proper nutrients into the body is able to reset that system, right? You're able to get out of that sympathetic state. Because again, I'm sure you take your job home with you. It's not it's not something you're ever really escaping. A lot of times, unless you're proactively doing something, you many times stay in that sympathetic state, or you're just always in overdrive. There's always too much cortisol, which again is going to affect your sleep. And that's really your body's ability to repair and come to that restorative state.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're able to do with nutritional psychiatry is get the proper nutrients, polyphenols, antioxidants to deal with getting you out of a pro-inflammatory state, getting you out of too much cortisol in the body, and resetting everything and bringing you back to where you can have a balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic state. And that's really, I think, the beauty of our product and simplicity is we're able to do that with natural ingredients, right?
Yeah.
It's not a drug that you have to take.
No.
It's just using natural compounds found in everyday foods that are actually able to balance out that nervous system and bring you back into a balanced, clear state of mind.
Yeah. So kind of the formula you put together, was this over time? Obviously, when you were dealing with Alzheimer's patients and studying nutritional psychiatry, was it just over time you start to notice that these different compounds, the brain reacts differently, the nervous system reacts differently to each of these compounds? Is that kind of how you started that road?
Yeah, at a high level, like I said, the seminal study, all they were doing was getting people to eat more of a Mediterranean style, right? It wasn't certain isolating nutrients.
Right.
It wasn't looking at certain compounds. It's just at a very fundamental level, how can we get nutrient dense foods into our body?
Yeah.
Well, right? So that was the starting point.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say that was the starting point of kind of where nutritional psychiatry started. Yeah. Was like, hey, at a very, very fundamental level, what can we be doing and what should we be doing? And then it started building upon that. It's like, okay, why is a Mediterranean diet actually beneficial?
Yeah.
And we're seeing certain nutrient profiles that it's, again, naturally nutrient dense and certain nutrients that the nervous system needs, again, to be balanced and reset.
Yeah.
Certain polyphenols that lower stress.
Yeah.
Again, when you're ramped up all the time, you're kind of in this low grade inflammatory state all the time.
Yeah.
So again, it's just resetting the system.
That's the thing. I mean, Dave, I'm sure you can speak on it too, like, our military experience. And, you're 100% right. It's when we are out on missions, we're out on missions. When we come back. Like, we can leave, that's why as veterans, we combat veterans will say, part of me is forever at war, which in another part of the world, right? Part of me is there no matter what, that's the thing. It's always there. But in the first responder world, especially law enforcement world, we go to the same exact places over and over again where, let's say, shooting occurred or a murder happened or something horrific happened, where I could drive by the same exact house and I'll tell with my whoop, like, oh, my heart rate just kind of went up just a little because of the past experiences going, or even dealing with a very violent fugitive. We know who he is. We know how violent he is. And I have so much data from the whoop that you could tell as I'm going up the stairs or as I'm approaching the house, my heart rate's already going because it's priming me and it's getting me ready for whatever that might, step out that door, whatever that might happen. So with Sapien and some of the other methodologies that I've developed for myself, it really, I find that, again, having that clearer mind after an incident or even before getting there really helps me as a leader to kind of coordinate with my guys what I need done. Like if we're at an armed barricade and we're surrounding the house and I need this done and I need that done and I need overwatch positions, stuff like that, where I find that cognitively I'm able to think of those things at a much, yes, I'm on SWAT and, we are extremely high performing, but given me a little bit more of a boost is always helpful, right? No matter what operational plane I'm playing at. And that's what I found with Sapien is it gave me that additional push to be able to reset much quicker. So like you said, for me, I purposely, when I drive home, that's like my downtime after I'm done with work. That's my downtime. I've kind of learned that's where I kind of ground myself, get myself back in, dad mode, family mode. That way I'm not coming in, hard charging, kicking the door open and saying, I'm home, because I used to. In the past I used to. This is before I studied all this stuff, right? This is before I really dove into the neuroscience and stress physiology and all that. And this is, you're talking, this 10 years ago, for 10 years I've been researching. So 10 years prior, I've been cop for almost 20 years, when you're a baby cop, you're like always amped up. You're always, because I worked in Boston, a real bad area of Boston. And I was like always amped up, always working and never really learning how to regulate myself. And now add combat experience, right? You're like, so all the hypervigilance, everything's firing, like the neural networks in my brain are firing at 200, 300 miles per hour, like really intense. And over time, once I started really digging into the stress physiology, I started to really learn more about the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system. And I really started to learn more about especially nutrition. Now, first responders, horrible with nutrition, absolutely horrible, because of one, the hours working, right? Sometimes you're just constantly at work.
Totally.
Where you just don't have the time to be able to, correct your nutrition, right? You see, I see a lot of guys, and Dave, I'm sure you've seen it, and Chris, like, you see guys that graduate the police academy. They're in shape because they've been training for 6 months, 8 months, whatever, running multiple miles a day, doing all kinds of cool things, whatever. They come back to their PDs and now they're like working nonstop, right? The nutrition starts to take a nosedive. Their physical fitness starts to take a nosedive because, which not too many people know, once you graduate the police academy, most agencies do not require you to do a PT test again. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you guys, it sounds like you guys didn't know that, but yeah, that's the majority of police departments. Very few police departments make it mandatory to have a physical fitness test. Like on my SWAT team, it's twice a year. We have a PT test on the SWAT team to stay current and to not be suspended. Because on the SWAT team, if you fail the PT test or the pistol rifle quals, they bench you for 30 days and then you got to retake it. And if you don't pass then you're out. That's it, So that's the thing. So I'm in a field where I'm required to always be in shape. And personally, I like being in shape because, again, I've always been an athlete since I was a little kid. So because I understand how important fitness is to overall health.
Totally.
Have you, Dave, have you met with your, I assume you have like law enforcement friends and stuff like that. Have you heard kind of similar type stories in terms of nutrition and how bad it is?
For sure. And I think it's funny because people don't, I think it takes people a while to really understand how nutrition can impact your mental state, your mental clarity, like your mental performance. But I experienced it even a little bit in the military. I remember, man, we'd go do after we would do like helicopter raids in Afghanistan, and we would come home, and what we would do to bring ourselves down. I remember we were very lucky, man. We were on some small base. I remember sitting there with the JTAC, and we would make ourselves root beer floats. Just come over the mission and just because what are you going to do? You're all jacked up. You're trying to let yourself come down a little bit. And so, we're throwing ice cream and soda into ourselves right between that. And, we were pretty lucky we had stuff, but yeah, for my law enforcement buddies, there's a bunch of guys in the Green Berets who were, former law enforcement or sort of went on to become that. And they talk about, the unbelievable conditions you guys are under. If you're on patrol, my understanding is if you're on patrol, you're just like at the whim of the city.
Pretty much.
And, city's not making time for you to grab a well-balanced lunch, and you're missing meals,
No.
you're getting calories where you can.
Yep.
You're forced to sit down a lot of the day. I mean, you're in a car, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in a car. It's classic, man. I mean, I do think one of the things that I love about what we're doing, and I think is sort of like discouraging from the other angle, is I feel badly when, like talking about sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, when people are jacked up, like I think both of you know, like the human body we actually have an innate capacity to balance ourselves out.
Yeah.
One, like your body will try to rest and relax. But I think what people don't understand is that, literally your nervous system is not going to be able to do that correctly. The nervous system is made up of like physical structures, chemical processes. And so unless it's got the raw material to make that stuff happen in the body, it's going to be that much harder to come down.
Yeah.
And so, I definitely seen it before. And that's why I think it's so cool for us. Immediately when I talked to Chris, that's why I was like, from my background, I was like, soft guys would love this. Military guys would love this. Law enforcement would love this.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, man, just really heartening to hear how great it has been for you, for sure.
Well, that's what, I'm the type, just like NCO in the Army, like I wouldn't recommend something unless I did it, right? That's an NCO mentality, right? That's the mentality that we all have. Like, unless I've done that thing, I won't recommend to anybody else. That's the thing. So me, just like with Whoop, just like with anything else I've done, well, I back it and I know, it actually works. And I always tell people, I said, one size doesn't fit all. Like just because it reacts, I react a certain way to this type of thing, you might have a better experience or you might, you know what I mean? So everybody, and I tell them, I said, nutrition and neuroscience and all these things are very individualistic. Everybody has their own thing, right? Like for me to bring myself down, I just take a couple deep breaths, box breathing. I'm a hurried nose dives. I'm good to go. And you'll see, like, I think I've shared with you, Dave, like some of my Whoop metrics during insane incidents, and you'll see the peaks and valleys. Like I go up and down, up and down, up and down, depending on what I'm dealing with. But with Sapien, I noticed that the valleys come much quicker. Like they come quick anyways, they've always come quick with me, but I've noticed much quicker. I mean, my resting heart rate now, because of Sapien, it used to be around 85, 87, 88, even 90. So still like a little high because, I know I work out a shit ton and I'm like, yeah, my resting heart rate is always high. With Sapien, I'm down mid 70s to almost 60s, resting heart rate. And I'm like, this is where it should be, but when you think about, and Chris, you chime in on this, when you think about the constant cognitive load that we go under with the stress and everything, having a higher heart rate is actually pretty normal because of your amygdala firing off, is because of your hypervigilance. I mean, real quick story. When I came home from Iraq, my resting heart rate was at 120. It was insane. Oh, it was insane. I had to take a medicine. I forget what kind of medicine it was for like 3 months in order to trigger my adrenal gland to turn off, literally, because my adrenal gland never turned off. It was just constant state of hypervigilance. So yeah, Chris, if you want to chime in, like that's what I found with me is just the cognitive load and keeping that heart rate high is actually not a good way for cardiovascular health and for mental health.
No, exactly. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You are always in that sympathetic state, right? So your baseline now is much higher than what it should be. And I think over time, you've been able to rebalance yourself through a lot of different techniques, right? It's not just a one size fits all for anybody.
Yeah.
Like you can't just start eating better and still be under this high amount of stress and not do anything to cope with that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we might see some benefits, but it's definitely not going to be optimal.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of take this holistic approach and you've added a tool to your tool belt, in terms of now you're getting the right nutrients in. So it is able to, basically how Dave said it earlier, is like, you now have the ingredients to be able to balance your body out, whether it's, make the proper neurotransmitters and really be able to balance that. All of those physiological processes are built upon nutrients, right?
Yeah.
That's so you having a diet that now incorporates those at the proper amounts.
Yeah.
So you have the building blocks to now be able to lower and get back to baseline.
Yeah.
Much quicker.
Yeah.
Also, now over time, the results of the stress, your cortisol levels now probably don't shoot up as high as they once were.
Yeah.
Right. Again, your baseline, you're starting from a lower baseline.
Yeah.
Now your body is actually releasing the proper amount.
Yep.
You can think like a diabetic, right? With insulin.
Yeah.
Cortisol, you can kind of think about it the same as like it's out of balance.
Yeah.
Right. So until you are rebalanced properly, you always have that kind of high baseline.
Yeah.
So you're not able to get back to where you should be.
That's actually a great analogy for, with the way diabetes is just you're right. I mean, when someone's blood sugar is out of whack, even as a cop, go into these calls where somebody's basically losing it because their blood sugar's, very low. And, you notice these things all of a sudden and you ask the question, hey, are you diabetic? Or a guardian that's with them, you're like, hey, is he diabetic? She diabetic? Oh yeah, they're diabetic. I'm like, ooh, let's get the ambulance down here. I mean, I've had one where the guy almost went into diabetic shock. He was that low. They gave him the quick glucose toothpaste thing, to get him back balanced. So it actually makes a lot of sense that, having tools like Sapien, to help you balance yourself back versus being jacked all the time where, a resting heart rate of 90 to 95. In reality, that's telling me, again, that's me studying myself. That's telling me that my amygdala is still firing off. I'm still in that hypervigilant state. I'm still in that sympathetic state, even at 90, 95. But now I'm down, 79, 75 on resting heart rate. That should be more the baseline. That's the balancing act that Sapien helped me with to kind of get myself quicker to baseline. So I can go to that next call even keeled. I'm more able to think clearer at the next call where I'm not hyper vigilant and, to the point where I'm thinking this dude is doing something that he shouldn't be doing, versus, my perception is much clearer. That's why I said that's the first thing I notice is when I say clear, actually, that's probably a better way of explaining it. When I say, I felt clearer, it's the perception. Perception was clearer because I wasn't that hyper vigilant as much, right? I mean, I still have hypervigilance because, I'm in a dangerous job. Things could turn at any minute, but it's like it turned the volume down for me.
And it probably felt like you had a beat in between basically the information coming in versus you reacting.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. It probably felt like you had a little bit of space.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And was able to properly process the information before you just went to this ultra high alert state.
That's the thing. And that's the lack of understanding to the general public that don't understand these things, that do the Monday morning quarterback. And don't get me wrong, I've seen some horrible use of forces from cops where I'm like, dude, what are you doing? But, I've taken more because I've studied force sciences and really spent 18 weeks studying that course. It's a phenomenal course from a company called Force Science, where it's the scientific approach to use of forces and everything. And they really hammer home all the physiological effects, the sympathetic, parasympathetic systems, and why does somebody keep shooting when they should have stopped, and why perception hits you in those ultra states. It's really amazing stuff because, again, I can nerd out all day on this stuff. But for the general public that just don't understand, or even cops themselves, first responders themselves, that don't really look into those things, don't know why it happened, right? It's that you don't know what you don't know. That's that 4 stages of competence that I've read about, the incompetent competence, where it sounds bad, but it's more like you don't know what you don't know. That's all it is. So the more you study, the more you realize that actually I do have a say in certain aspects, right? Like you said, you have that fine line between, I think, who was it that said it? Was it Viktor Frankl? So I forget exactly who said where, between action and reaction, there's that space, where you can take that millisecond or that second to think and then, make that decision. Even I find that going quick, like going hands-on quick with someone, where we had this really intense dude, like, extremely violent. He's a paranoid schizophrenic, very, very, but very violent, he's that type of paranoid schizophrenic. And, we took our time, went slow, and ended up taking him into custody, no issues. But it all was in the timing that I did, that I realized I had right away, and was able to, we were able to cuff him up real quick, and boom, it was over before he even realized it, because what I wanted to do was hit his OODA loop, right? Kind of confuse him and get him as soon as possible before he could think of doing something else. And those are the things, like you said, like giving me that half a second to just really like, hey guys, let's do this. It just dawned on me. Hey, let's do this. So that, I mean, there's so many benefits that I found with Sapien alone. I mean, I've seen on your posts on social media, you have some athletes are posting about Sapien and how well they're doing with it. I mean, on the athletic standpoint, Dave, I mean, with Sapien, what are athletes also telling you guys about it?
For sure. I mean, well, I also want to start with, I do want to, I'll start where you left off, just on the mental clarity thing. And I mean, for me too, even as an athlete, when I was training, one of the things I would say to Chris and I would say to people is exactly what you were saying. I felt like I describe it two ways with the mental clarity, and I'll talk about how this plays into athletics, but I felt like I had another gear that I could switch into mentally. And I felt like exactly that. In the face of stressful information, I felt like I could process it before feeling it.
Yeah.
Which is like, it was wild. It was like I had another step in between.
Yeah.
And I mean, even from a personal perspective, like, for me, what that meant in the gym is like, it allowed me to push harder as an athlete. Because when I'd have like extreme stress coming down, when I'd feel same way, like people talk about this a lot, but rate of perceived effort, how hard you think you're pushing, is like a metric that a lot of athletes and coaches track to be like, okay, what type of workout are you actually getting?
Yeah.
And so here I am now doing like a workout that last week would have felt like a 10. And all of a sudden I now have like a little bit of space, a little bit of like one more gear to be like, all right, this is painful, but it's not a 10 anymore. My perception of this thing that was a 10 last week is like, maybe it's an 8 now. Maybe it's a 9 now. Yeah. But it feels a little easier. And so that allows me to like, oh, I got more. I can push. And so I've found that. I've heard similar things from other athletes. Definitely on the mental side, we hear it pretty consistently. Also on the physical side, I mean, it's pretty wild. One of the things that we hear consistently is less soreness, less fatigue later on, particularly with athletes that have like very intense training schedules.
Yep.
We'll hear very consistently like, oh, my late week workouts, my weekend workouts, I'm not as run down. I feel like I've got more in the tank. That's anecdotal. Of course, from, I'd say most of the people we give it to, HRV up, RHR down. It's pretty wild. I mean, like even though we know it works, it's still, I get a huge smile on my face every time somebody new says it to me. I mean, It's crazy, man. I gave it, one of my buddies, former detachment commander for Green Berets, literally overnight, he basically I think there was like a 50% increase in his HRV.
Yeah.
Just nuts.
Yeah.
Like totally insane. So, some of the other things we hear though, and this is like, I think both due to the role of the nervous system and also due to the role of some of the side effects of the nutrients that we have in there, people feel like they can, people feel like their cardio gets better, which there's data that backs this up. I mean, we put a very large amount of ashwagandha in every serving of Sapien. And there have been studies conducted which show that actually has improved VO2 max in that amount over time. So we think we're improving VO2 max. We're working on getting some studies partnered up with some people to try that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like definitely people feel like they have another mental gear in training and competition. They feel like they have less soreness. They feel like rate of perceived effort is a little lower on stuff that they're used to going hard with.
Yep.
And they tend to feel like their cardio is improving, even if, we're still, I won't go as far to say as we've seen VO2 max increase, but the science is definitely there that shows it should do it. And we're getting anecdotally, people are like, yeah, all of a sudden I'm running faster with less effort. And it's like, well, that's what's going on. Your VO2 max is getting better.
That's so amazing. So, I mean, now real quick to bring it back to law enforcement and first responders, like with the amount of equipment we wear, right? I mean, any given day, I may have, if I'm working patrol, you're talking 25 pounds of gear on me, right? So 25. Yeah. So it's pretty, now on the SWAT side, right? I got more like 50 pounds of gear on me, because if you want to add everything else, I mean, when I was in Iraq, I'm sure Dave, it's like my kit was 70 pounds alone without, because they were the old school SAPI plates and they were like heavy as hell. And, that was 70 pounds all by itself with all my ammo and everything. But anyways, so what I found is guys that get into foot chases and everything, I always tell them, I said, listen, it's not about the foot chase. It's about what if you have the gas for after the foot chase, when you take the suspect down or whatever you're doing. I said, that's the most important part of this. Like, foot chase is a foot chase, right? If you're not running, that's your own fault anyways. But if, you get into that foot chase and you end up taking the guy down, well, guess what? You're still not done. It's not like football where you tackle and ref blows a whistle and you're all set. No, we still got work to do. So with Sapien, I can imagine as a sergeant, I don't really do foot chases because by the time I get there, it's already done. But the thing is though, like as a younger officer, when I would do the foot chases, I always wanted to make sure I had that extra gas in me to finish what the bad guy literally started. To handcuff him. So I can only imagine that with Sapien, adding it to the toolbox, you'll feel that much more gas in you after, you take him down, after you handcuff him, and then you kind of get yourself right back to baseline.
I mean, I feel like that is probably true. And that we're excited about finding various PDs and officers who are interested in like testing this and continuing to tell us how it affects them, particularly on like frontline and patrol. So important. And, my thought is that you're probably right. I think about it like an athlete. Look, it can't hurt. Your rate of perceived effort during the chase is going to be, no matter how fast you're running, you're taking this, probably a rate of perceived effort taking it is going to be lower than it would be if you weren't taking it, meaning the chase will feel easier than it could have been. And I also think just mentally, this stuff compounds because it sort of like works together. And so like mentally, when you're in this chase, even though your heart rate's jacked, if your nervous system, I think the healthier it is, the more balanced it is, the better chance you have at being like, all right, I get it. I'm gassed. I'm breathing hard, but I'm going to come around this corner and I'm probably 2 strides away from tackling this guy. Maybe you get a little bit more of like, and my first move after that is I'm going to go for my cuffs. Or like the first move after that is I need to put my knee on his back or whatever, whatever it is, you might get that like little extra space to just see a little bit further than you did off of it, which again, like these are, it's small gains, but it can make a big difference.
Well, really that's the thing. If we bring it into like, let's say simple training, right? Weapons training, pistol training, right? Right. The way your body mechanics move, right? You could be faster, coming from the holster based on how you're moving with your body, right? Versus if you kind of do, different, I can't kind of do it on the video, but you get for those in the firearms instructing world and stuff like that, and SOF, and you guys understand what I'm talking about. Is it, the way exactly the way you present, the way your human body is made, you kind of complement it, with the movement to get your pistol out that much quicker. Similar, now, bring it back to Sapien. I picture it to be that same sort of thing where your body moves more ergonomically, more kind of deliberate movements versus doing extra things that you don't really need to do, but giving you that mental clarity to be able to do whatever task that you're set out to do.
Totally. I mean, Chris, definitely keep me honest here. But like, I do feel like this is the other thing. A lot of people, and I'm glad you brought this side of it up too, because like a lot of people, I think, hear this and will be like, okay, well, I know Sapien is going to be good for like bringing me down, and like taking care of my nervous system can be good for bringing me down. It's also critical for making sure that you can hit peak performance. Like your nervous system, that's the thing that is the thing which controls when you send a signal, when you say, when your brain is like draw, your nervous system is literally the thing that connects that to the muscles and the movement, which is going to go down, grab the pistol, present. And so like, if that thing is unhealthy, that thing is unbalanced, that's a slower draw. That's a choppier draw. That's a choppier movement. Like the healthier it is, the quicker that's going to be. I mean, motor function and like, quickness, muscle quickness, like all that's like massively controlled by the nervous system.
Yeah. Chris, you had something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say reaction times. is significantly going to improve. Again, it's just your rate of firing is so much quicker now. All these trials are from your motor cortex are going down via these nerves, and it's as healthy as these nerves. It can fire faster or slower based off of how healthy the nervous system is.
Yeah.
So again, it's not just about when you're talking about nervous system, it's always you want to be in balance.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to be too high or too low.
Yes.
Either one of those, you're going to see negative effects with performance cognitively and physical. Right. So it's always maintaining that balance. So a lot of times we're talking about, you're overactive in the sympathetic nervous system, but the same can be true. You could be way too underactive, right?
Yep.
You can have depression and lethargy and fatigue.
Yeah.
And again, the same solution is rebalancing the nervous system.
Yeah. So it's an interesting study. One of the many studies I read through Force Science is they were talking about, by the time an officer draws their firearm, by the time that decision is made that they need to unholster that firearm, you're talking anywhere between 0.64 milliseconds to a second and a half. All right. That's kind of the average that they found. And because they used like over 100 officers in this study. And then they also went on the other side and watched hundreds of police body cam videos to see how quickly does the bad guy draw and fire their first bullet. And for the bad guy is 0.25 milliseconds, the average. So the officers are already behind because action beats reaction, right? So, but one thing I want to kind of point out is because, the second and a half is the really bad one. 0.64 milliseconds, that's pretty fast because that's like a more higher performing cop, 0.64 milliseconds in order to draw and fire. The second and a half is the cop that goes to the range maybe once a year, twice a year, doesn't really dedicate too much time on training because the second and a half is the same reaction time that you would have on the highway when you're driving down the highway and you see the brake lights, and it takes you that's why, National Highway Safety Bureau says, keep at least a minimum 1 to 2 car lengths, when you're on the highway, not tailgating, because it does take the body that much longer. Like Chris, like you said, by the time you see it or you perceive it, and then by the time it goes to your brain, by the time it goes to your legs, there's all these functions that goes on in our nervous system. By then it's already too late. So the way I always train because of those things is, cutting, having certain angles on people I think that are armed, having certain angles. That way I'm able to react that much more quicker because I need to have a leg up, right? So it'd be interesting. One thing that I found interesting actually with Sapien is at the range with my SWAT team. A lot of times we use buzzers and we use different things to kind of initiate us to shoot, and all that stuff. I found my draw much quicker. All of a sudden, like really, again, it was very interesting because I keep tabs on how I do each, there's certain range days I do horrible. So actually, funny story, it was the time where I didn't take Sapien for a couple of days. I was junk at the range. I sucked. I'm like, what the hell's going on with me? Like, I was making mistakes that I usually don't. One, I was tired, busy week and everything. But, I noticed I was way off. I'm like, that's not normal. And even my guys, like, they're all a bunch of combat vets on the team, and we were debriefing, and one of them looked at me, they're like, you suck today, dude. I'm like, I know I did. I was like, I did suck. But then, got myself back going on Sapien and for a while, and then went to the range last week with the SWAT team. Holy shit, was I lights out. Like, you're talking, everything was firing the way it should. Even it was 90 degrees. It was extremely hot, right, under the sun. And even then, I was on it. I was like, boom, 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 and every time that buzzer, I was so quick to the draw, so quick to get that first round out. I was like, holy crap. So again, it's like, what the hell is in Sapien, man? Like, it's just one of those things. Again, those are all like the mini stories I have so far with Sapien that I'm very excited about, to share with my listeners, your customers, and everybody, to just say, like you said, it's not just recovery. It's not just the resetting and all that. There's actually a very, very important performance space that Sapien helps. And one thing for people to know, like, one thing I realized, I remember I asked you, Chris and Dave, both of you, I was like, hey, when should I take Sapien? Like, is this a morning thing? Is this a night thing? And Dave was like, dude, you take it whenever you want. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't help. When am I supposed to take it? But Chris, one thing you brought up is especially at night, I found that at night to take it before bed, because that's where, like you said, the mind muscles do all their repairs at night while you're asleep. So I tried it during the day, but then I found at night, much better for me. Like, again, it's all personal preference. It's however you want to take it. For me, it was nighttime. That's kind of where I found my niche in it. So, I mean, so would you recommend that with your customers too? Take it at night or take it in the morning? I know you guys were like, yeah, take it anytime, but what's kind of more beneficial for everyone?
Yeah, I think, after more conversations of users, the people we were seeing with the higher stats were taking it in the evening. So we kind of took a deeper dive looking at the research on that. And again, most of that repair is happening at night. Again, a lot of the ingredients too are helping you with that repair. So taking it right before the evening will optimize that, right? Like if you take it during the day, it might prime you and it might help you in that moment. But then you're kind of depleted by the end of the day of where you should be, of those optimal levels at night.
Yeah.
So, and then me personally, I started, I play around. I'm like you, I'm a scientist. I'm always experimenting.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm not under the physical and mental stress of either one of you, but I do have, wrangling up two little kids. I had 2 under 2 and a startup. I have stress, but a different style of stress. But stress is stress, right? The body perceives it all differently. But for me, like, I used to sleep so poorly. But now that's the biggest thing that I've noticed of really changing my nutrition and following nutritional psych was my sleep quality went through the roof, which again helped with all of these aspects of performance.
Yeah. And that's the thing is as first responders, our sleep is trash, because there are times we get called in emergencies, or, me as a sergeant, I have to cover shifts, other shifts for other sergeants where I'm working multiple doubles here and there. And it's really taxing. And that's the thing is like, taking something like Sapien and adding it to my toolbox, my self-awareness like really went even higher than it normally is. So that's why I said, when I worked like a couple doubles and I'm like, man, I am beat, and I see, I got to be at work the next day, I took the day off, because to me, if you want, that 30,000 foot view, I would be more of a liability to my guys, because I will not be firing off on all cylinders. I'm not going to be that same tactician or strategist that I would typically be when I'm working, right? So that's the thing is, for all first responders, one of my biggest goals and things is to really push out this awareness of, we're not robots. In the end, we're human. We can't work multiple doubles in a row and to be expected by the public to have that high performance that is expected of us, because just like, SOF and certain aspects of the military that are held on an extremely high standard, that's what we're held to, this extremely high standard, because we are who we are, right? We have the badge, we have this incredible responsibility of life and death, taking someone's freedoms away, by arresting them, very, very serious things that should be taken serious as, law enforcement leaders and politicians. Don't get me started on them, but politicians and others, where it's got to be, very well, it's got to be a very holistic approach in training, in recovery, and in really taking care of your troops. And Dave, as well as I do, like, you take care of your troops take care of you. And, it's like, it's this harmony that occurs in any organization when everybody's taking care of each other and work as a team. And that's the biggest thing I tell the guys on my squad. I said, listen, we're individual officers, but guess what? We're a team. This is a team sport. Each of us have our strengths and weaknesses, but you combine it all together, we can be unstoppable, adding, these Sapien, Whoop, or whatever it might be, adding it to those to our arsenal of different tools of coping and recovery and performance will make you that holistic approach and that just much more effective officer out on the road.
Totally, man. I mean, I do not envy you guys. I mean, I appreciate you very much, and I do not envy you. I think law enforcement has an incredibly tall order. And I mean, I'm glad you came back to this, because when we started the conversation about, the difference between law enforcement and military, I mean, both have their own resource constraints, but it is just like, the more I learn about what law enforcement typically faces in terms of how little money they get for training, really the level of nutrition that they're exposed to, like the lifestyle, like that's hard, man. And so I think it's truly, I mean, I'll speak for Chris a little bit, not often, but I do know we share in this. Like, I think for us, it is, dude, it is an honor to like, hopefully be part of that solution to put people who are doing really hard work, really important work on better footing. It's something that we're really proud of. Like, we're thrilled that you liked it and it's helping you on multiple fronts, man. And yeah, just makes us very happy.
Both of you guys remind me of this quote by Marcus Aurelius. He says, life is short. The fruit of this life is a good character and acts for the common good. And that's kind of like what you guys have, is just, you guys have taken, Chris, and you've taken literally all the knowledge that you've had with nutritional psychiatry and your experience with Alzheimer's and everything, and really brought it forward to the masses, so to speak, with Dave, and Dave understanding the performance side in terms of, his time as a Green Beret and all, all his experiences really showed me, and kind of that's what really got me attracted to Sapien, is that it was a genuine product, not a snake oil salesman type mentality, like, oh yeah, you did, because there's plenty, we know in the supplement space, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry of mostly lies, right? It's a lot of take this one pill and it will save you from all these things, which that's a bunch of BS. And it's refreshing to see, like, Sapien really take more of a lead in actual recovery, actual performance, not this cookie cutter, like, oh yeah, you want to get ripped and veiny and, look like Schwarzenegger, like, that's not what it's about. It's again, when you're talking about performance, I mean, Dave, as well as I do, like, I laugh because I have a lot of close friends that are Green Berets, and I'm like, they don't look like Rambo, they picture Rambo, you know what I mean? Like all those things. I mean, in the end, we're all regular dudes, right? That's all we are, and
So true.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I laugh because Hollywood has painted us in this completely different picture, where in reality, we're just guys out there doing the job, and that's it, and we find our little niches here and there, and we find our expertise here and there. And then, products like Sapien and others, especially actually Sapien, kind of gives us that additional push to do more, to do better.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, we're super pleased to like start getting it out into the law enforcement community, into the military community. And, of course, like anybody who needs it, but it is particularly satisfying for us to help out folks like you who are doing really hard work, really stressful work. And I think really tough conditions.
Yeah.
Really, really tough conditions. And the other thing I'd say on that, man, is like, yeah, I don't think Chris nor I ever thought, I mean, certainly I never thought I'd be part of a supplement company. I don't know that Chris ever had that aspiration in his life. And it just like came to, I mean, yeah, Chris created this incredible thing from, I think, such a pure motivation. And it's a joy to be able to give people something. And they're like, is this real? And we're like, yeah. And we just know it's real. And so they take it, they feel better. And it's great. I mean, it's great, but it is, yeah, I don't think either of us thought we'd be in the supplement space. And even it's funny, like we try to make ourselves the least supplementy. If people want to call it supplement, that's sort of how they understand it. But it's like, it is literally nutrition facts product, all whole foods, all natural compounds, no added sugar, nothing, no added junk whatsoever, nothing, like nothing unnatural whatsoever about it. And so,
oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say before I forget. When I first took it, and I told you, I'm like, dude, it doesn't taste like anything. It's just like you put it in water and you drink it. And it's like, I was expecting, I actually had no idea what the flavor was going to be like. I really had no idea. So when I drank it, I text Dave right away. I'm like, hey, Dave, I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. It doesn't taste like anything. You just drink it and you're good. You're just drinking water. So, which is really, really refreshing. And I didn't want to downplay it by calling it a supplement, like a supplement, because because here's the thing, there is also, like, in the nutrition world, in the actual performance world and nutrition world, where if something's a supplement, well, it must be snake oil, right? It's not 100%, legit or anything like that. So for you guys, I think you guys, like, it's not just a supplement, but it's also like making it part of a way of life, where you can take it, whether you're an athlete or even just a regular Joe or law enforcement or first responder. It basically has benefits for all those spaces. I mean, if you're in construction, hell, you take something like this, makes you that, again, it helps in ways that I never thought it would help me. It was so new for me. I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a whirl, see what happens. Yeah. And it's funny you say that, where you were like, with your wife, you were like, hey, watch me make sure I don't get poisoned or whatever it is. Because when I first started taking it, I tell my wife, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting this cool thing, blah, blah, blah. She said, do you even know these guys? I'm like, no, not really. Met them on LinkedIn. She's like, all right, well, take it while I'm around and then we'll see what happens.
It's funny you guys still say that and never once crossed my mind. And again, I'm like completely naive. I haven't seen, you guys have obviously seen a lot of trauma and bad things, and I'm just this naive. Chris
is like, you know what? I should put you two in a straitjacket and just kind of keep you away.
I'm from rural Kansas, right? Like, I didn't grow up in a big city, like very green. Yeah. So when I was sitting into Dave and he said that was the first time I was like, really? Like, that never once crossed my mind. But after he told this story a couple of times, I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, that actually seems a little sketchy.
No, but
I mean, only a little.
Yeah. But so guys, I mean, we're getting towards the end. I definitely want to put out, your website and all that stuff. All that will be in the show notes. Is there anything, between Chris, if you want to start it off, anything you want to tell the listeners, anything you want to add that we missed, please, the floor is yours. If there's something you want to put out there.
Yeah, no, I think, first and foremost, appreciate all the hard work and dedication that everybody puts in law enforcement and military. And it really is like our honor to be able to support that community. Dave and I, like, the number one thing when we came together and was like, hey, we're going to make something that helps people, right? That's really all that mattered to us. And, we found that it really helps this community, and we're super proud of that. And any questions people have, whether it be nutritional psych or other, methods, whether, Dave's experience, he has a lot of tools in his toolkit other than this. Me as well, working with some high performance individuals, like, reach out to us. We'll post our emails, website, whatever it may be. So any questions, we really started this to help people. And the whole nervous system approach is very new to a lot of people. It's great. I'm in that you're kind of pushing this, and you're a leader and really kind of building that connection with people of making it simple to understand, right? Yeah. So however we can help people, please reach out. You don't have to buy the product. If you just have questions, we would love to help.
Absolutely. And Dave, what do you got for the listeners?
I mean, likewise, I just want to say thanks to you, Iman, for having us here. Totally agree with what Chris said, both in terms of helping people, but also in terms of what he said about you. I think, you're a special guy, man, bringing sort of nervous system training. No. Nice try. But truly, your nervous system training, your knowledge, I think it's helping a lot of people. And so that's awesome. I hope you keep doing what you're doing. I did also, just like on the pod, wanted to put out and offer, if there's like better law enforcement officers on here, other military folks on here listening and are interested in like doing some sort of trial with their unit, with their PD, we're looking into doing that sort of stuff. So, hit us up. You can contact us directly using the website and stuff like that, or our Instagram. And we'd love to talk with you. Love to maybe set up some sort of test with the PD or military unit that you're in. So you can get some real data. We can get some real data, and you can see for yourselves what type of impact it would have.
Absolutely. Excellent. So, listeners, I mean, this is Chris and Dave from Sapien. Great couple guys. I mean, I hope you guys got a lot out of this conversation that we had today. And like I said, everything will be in the show notes, their website, contact information, to include coupon code from Project Sapient with Sapien. I'll post that right on there. And, I will definitely add them to our list of supporters where you have coupon codes. So it'll always be on the website. It'll always be on Instagram and all those other places that you guys know where to find me. But Dave, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today, spreading the knowledge of nervous system training and how critical it is, and even having Sapien as another tool in the toolbox to help you with that journey. Everybody, don't forget, like, subscribe, share this episode and all my episodes on Project Sapient. And as always, stay safe.